Hello, everyone. My name is Jonah Thurston. Give me just 1 second to share my screen real quick. Okay. I am doing the Joseph Smith Sr. and Lucy Mack Smith topic from Unit 3. Joseph Smith Sr. and Lucy Mack were awesome, so we're just going to jump right into it. To start with my academic sources, um, I couldn't fit the actual bibliography until the very end. So if you want to look up the sources, you can see them at the very end. Um, on the left, we've got a quote from Joseph Smith himself about his dad, Joseph Smith Sr. The memory of his noble deeds rests with ponderous weight upon my mind, and many of his kind and parental words to me are written on the tablet of my heart. That just really showed to me how important Joseph's dad was, and of course his upbringing, but also just his values and what was important to Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith Sr. was a really awesome dude, and he did a really good job of raising Joseph Smith Jr. To also be awesome. And then on the right, we've got a quote about Lucy. It says, Lucy remembers herself busy with good works, ministering to 20 or 30 who were sick. And again, this quote just shows how amazing Lucy and Joseph Smith Sr. were, and just how important they were to making Joseph Smith Jr. who he was, and just making him the awesome prophet that we know today. And then moving on to our prophetic sources, again, we've got a quote about Joseph Smith Sr. on the right, or on the left, and Lucy on the right. Starting with Joseph Smith Sr. When Joseph Smith Sr. was dying, his children gathered to receive his final blessing. After first blessing his wife, Father Smith began with Hiram, his eldest, and gave each child what he called a dying blessing. I really liked this quote because it showed how important the priesthood was to Joseph Smith Sr. On his deathbed, the very last thing he did was give a fatherly blessing to all his kids and his wife. And I just thought that that was a really good indicator of how important the priesthood was to him and how much it impacted his life. And then the quote from Lucy, her determination to testify to the restoration of the gospel may have led her to dictate her well-known history of Joseph Smith. It stands as a monument to the devotion of Lucy Mack Smith and her family. Lucy Mack Smith ends up making the History of Joseph Smith book. And it is from this book that we know a lot of the details about Joseph Smith that we would not if she had not made that book. And it's just such an important book to church history. And it is just, like the quote says, a monument to the devotion of Lucy Mack Smith and how important this church was to her. Moving on to the D&C sections. On the left, we have D&C 124:19, my aged servant Joseph Smith Sr., who sitteth with Abraham at his right hand, and blessed and holy is he, for he is mine. This quote, both of these quotes actually from D&C, just kind of showed the reward that Joseph Smith Sr. and Lucy Mack Smith got for being such faithful saints and enduring so much. I mean, they had to go through so many trials and persecutions as the parents of Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith Sr. even had to spend a month in jail for refusing to deny the Book of Mormon. And so they had been through so much, and we get it confirmed in D&C 124 that Joseph Smith Sr. Ends up right where he's supposed to be, with Abraham at his right hand. And then D&C 137:5 is actually the only reference in D&C that we get to Lucy Mack Smith. And it doesn't even mention her by name. It says, I saw Father Adam and Abraham, and my father and mother, my brother Alvin that has long slept. That my mother reference in there is the only reference to Lucy Mack Smith that we get in D&C, and I just um, thought it was really cool. Um, and finally, on to the Joseph Smith Papers reference. And blessed also is my mother, for she is a mother in Israel, and shall be a partaker with my father in all his patriarchal blessings. So this came from a blessing that Joseph Smith gave both of his parents, and he starts out by describing all the blessings that his dad's going to get. And then he calls his mother a mother in Israel and says that she's going to get all the same blessings as his father. And I think, if I remember correctly, that Lucy Mack Smith actually gets the title Mother in Israel ordained later on in life upon her. And so we are going to move on to our final summary points. Joseph Smith Sr. and Lucy Mack Smith were amazing parents, people, and saints. They supported their son through very difficult trials and served faithfully throughout their lives. Joseph Smith's parents were blessed greatly for their faith and their willingness to endure to the end. Yeah, so from all the research and the readings that I did about these two parents, I was just continually impressed with how faithful they were through so many difficult trials and through so much. And then, of course, we get the lines in D&C that in the end, their faith was paid off and they made it where they were supposed to go. And so, finishing up with our personal application, we can learn lessons in faith, service, and the blessings that come with those from this pair of parents. And obviously, in just the 5 minutes and 6 slides that I have, I couldn't give even a tiny bit of justice to how cool these people were. And I would 100% recommend doing more research on this pair of amazing saints. Here's my bibliography of the sources that I used when I couldn't fit the sources on the same sides as them. They should be in order. There are some really, really good sources. If you are curious to learn more about these two, I would highly recommend these sources. And that's going to be it for me. See you all later.